Interim UFC lightweight champion Justin Gaethje has responded to his former rival Dustin Poirier's recent hints at a potential comeback, acknowledging the possibility of a trilogy fight but making it clear his primary focus remains on moving forward toward an undisputed title. Gaethje reclaimed the interim belt with a dominant victory over Paddy Pimblett at UFC 324 earlier this month, a performance his coach Trevor Wittman framed as the final chapter of his storied career. Shortly after that win, Poirier, who retired following a loss to Max Holloway last summer, teased on social media that he would return from retirement specifically for a third fight with Gaethje. In a recent interview with Bloody Elbow, Gaethje addressed the proposition with respect for his longtime foe, but emphasized his current championship trajectory. "Dustin's a warrior, and I'll always respect him. If he really wants to come back and the UFC wants that fight, I'd do it. But I'm focused on moving forward, not backward. I've got goals I'm chasing, and that's where my attention is." Gaethje and Poirier share one of the most violent and memorable rivalries in lightweight history. Their first fight in 2018 ended with Gaethje suffering a fourth-round TKO loss, while their rematch in 2023 saw Poirier knocked out by a brutal Gaethje head kick, leaving the series tied at 1-1. Since retiring, Poirier has remained involved in the sport as a UFC analyst and has previously admitted that matchups against Gaethje or Nate Diaz could lure him back into competition. For now, Gaethje's immediate path is expected to be a title unification bout against undisputed champion Ilia Topuria, though Topuria's return timeline remains unclear amid a personal hiatus. Should that fight be delayed, or if the UFC pursues a different direction, a blockbuster trilogy with Poirier would undoubtedly capture fan interest. However, Gaethje's comments underscore his determination to finally capture an undisputed UFC championship above all else, suggesting that while the door to a third fight with Poirier isn't closed, it isn't his priority as he approaches the final acts of his career. Diego Lopes has received a substantial and welcome update following the physical toll of his featherweight championship rematch at UFC 325. Initially confronting the terrifying prospect of a double break in both feet that would likely require surgery, the Brazilian title challenger has now confirmed he will avoid going under the knife entirely. Instead, he faces a more manageable recovery period, wearing protective boots and relying on crutches for the coming weeks. After being outclassed by Volkanovski over 5 punishing rounds in Sydney, Lopes was immediately transported to a local hospital for a thorough medical assessment. The early prognosis, shared urgently by his manager Jason House on social media, painted a dire picture. "Looks like we broke both feet," House posted, adding a somber reflection on the night's turn. "Some nights you're at the after-party, some nights you're at the ER." Thankfully, more detailed imaging and examination delivered a far more optimistic outcome. From his hospital bed, Lopes took to Instagram to clarify his condition for concerned supporters. "Everything is fine," he assured. "The initial diagnosis at Arena was that I might have broken both feet. We went to the hospital, they ran tests, and everything was fine. Just some fractures in both feet, but surgery isn't necessary. I'll be using boots and crutches for a few weeks." This revised diagnosis represents a crucial reprieve for the number 2 ranked featherweight contender. While fractures in both feet are undoubtedly painful and will require disciplined healing, they spare him the protracted downtime and uncertainty of surgical intervention. The recovery path is now clearer and significantly shorter, allowing him to maintain his conditioning and begin strategizing his return to the octagon much sooner than initially feared. The news softens the blow of a second competitive defeat to the dominant champion Volkanovski, a result that undeniably pushes Lopes further from the immediate title conversation. However, preserving his long-term physical health and avoiding a major surgical setback keeps his career trajectory firmly on track. For now, Lopes's focus shifts entirely to rest and rehabilitation, with the goal of returning to full strength and eventually mounting another campaign in the deep and dangerous 145-pound division.
Dan Hooker using his media appearances to settle scores and question the credibility of his rivals, particularly Paddy Pimblett. When asked about Pimblett's performance in his interim title loss to Justin Gaethje at UFC 324, the Hangman offered a brutal and succinct review. Dog shit, he said, before elaborating on his disdain for fighters who talk big but failed to deliver under pressure. He talks an awful lot of shit for someone that fights like that, Hooker added. If the only thing coming out of that fight is that you got a good chin, coming from experience, you fought like shit. Hooker then escalated the personal attack by reviving a long-standing rumor involving Conor McGregor. He claimed that after Pimblett talked trash about McGregor online, the Irish superstar drove to Pimblett's house to confront him, and Pimblett refused to come outside. Is that common knowledge that he talked shit about Conor McGregor and then Conor McGregor drove around to his house? Hooker asked. That tells you all you need to know about a guy. The story, which dates back to 2022, has been denied by Pimblett, who said any commotion occurred elsewhere and that he never actually faced McGregor. Regardless of its accuracy, Hooker used it to paint a picture of Pimblett as someone who avoids real confrontation, a charge that adds fuel to a feud that began with deeply personal insults about each other's families.
Alexander Volkanovski's dominant unanimous decision victory over Diego Lopes at UFC 325 becomes even more impressive with a new post-fight revelation from his coach. According to Joe Lopes, the featherweight champion was battling a significant shoulder injury in the final weeks of his training camp, an issue so severe that they briefly considered withdrawing from the rematch altogether. To be fair, Alex, 4 weeks ago, we didn't think he was going to fight, Lopes revealed in an interview on Daniel Cormier's YouTube channel. He pulled his shoulder out, really. He's been compromised for the last 4 weeks with a busted shoulder. Despite the injury, Volkanovski not only fought, but delivered a controlled 5-round masterclass to retain his title. His coach contrasted this camp with his preparation for their first fight, noting a significant mental shift. Volk was sort of second-guessing himself the whole of the first Diego camp, Lopes said. With this camp, Volk was back to himself. He was confident, didn't have to say anything. He was just old Volk back again. Looking ahead, Lopes expressed optimism about his fighter's longevity, suggesting maybe we can get another 4 out of him. Volkanovski has already identified the opponent he wants next, with a title eliminator between Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy scheduled for UFC London in March. The champion is rooting for a specific outcome to set up his next challenge. Undefeated sounds good, Volkanovski said in a post-fight interview. I think Movsar's 19-0. He's got that wrestling and grappling style that's taking over the UFC at the moment. The new era, they could say. Who do I think is going to win that fight? I think Movsar wins that fight, so if they do fight, I'll probably end up facing him. The admission of a pre-fight injury adds another layer to Volkanovski's latest title defense, underscoring his toughness and professionalism. As he eyes a future clash with an undefeated contender, his latest win proves he can overcome both a dangerous opponent and his own physical setbacks. In a moment of levity, away from the high-stakes world of the UFC lightweight division, top contender Arman Tsarukyan took a comical tumble while attempting to film a snowboarding skit. The normally formidable fighter, known for his relentless grappling and sharp striking, found himself humbled by the slopes in a brief video clip that has since circulated online, much to the amusement of fans. The incident serves as a lighthearted reminder that even elite athletes have their off days, or in this case, off-balance moments, when stepping outside their element. Tsarukyan, who is currently awaiting a pivotal matchup after being passed over for the interim title fight at UFC 324, appears to be enjoying some downtime amid the tense contender landscape. No harm was done beyond a likely bruised ego, and the clip has been met with good-natured laughter from the MMA community.
For now, Tsarukyan's focus will quickly shift back from snowy wipeouts to the heated competition of the octagon, where he remains one of the most dangerous and persistent threats in the 155-pound division. Mauricio Ruffy is riding high after the biggest win of his UFC career and is already setting his sights on the grandest stage imaginable, the historic UFC event at the White House this summer. Following his impressive second-round TKO victory over the always dangerous Rafael Fiziev at UFC 325, the surging lightweight prospect made a direct and ambitious pitch to the promotion's top brass for a spot on the landmark June card. In his post-fight interview with Daniel Cormier, Ruffy didn't hesitate to call his shot, speaking in Portuguese to deliver a message straight to UFC leadership. "Hunter, Dana White, what do you guys think about putting me on the White House?" Ruffy asked, before naming two of the biggest stars in the sport as potential opponents. "You can put me against Paddy Pimblett or Conor McGregor. That's for sure. I want Conor McGregor. I think I'm a lot better than Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor." The call-out is a bold declaration of intent from a fighter who just re-established himself as a serious player at 155 pounds. His win over Fiziev served as a crucial rebound from his submission loss to Benoit Saint-Denis last September, silencing doubts about his ability to compete with the division's elite and showcasing the explosive power and sharp technique that originally marked him as a must-watch prospect. By naming both Pimblett, who is looking to rebound from his own high-profile loss, and the legendary McGregor, Ruffy is aiming for the kind of spotlight fight that could catapult him into mainstream recognition overnight. His comment about being a better matchup than the long-rumored McGregor versus Chandler bout is a cheeky but confident jab, positioning himself as a fresh and exciting alternative. With his entertaining style and newfound momentum, Ruffy's request is a compelling one. Whether the UFC grants him a slot on the star-studded White House card remains to be seen, but his victory and subsequent call-out have undoubtedly made him one of the most talked-about winners from UFC 325, and a fighter clearly ready to chase the brightest lights available. UFC star Paddy Pimblett is already mapping out a long-term path to redemption following the most punishing night of his career, explicitly calling for a future rematch with interim lightweight champion Dustin Gaethje. In his first detailed public remarks since their UFC 324 main event, the baddie absorbed the lessons of his unanimous decision loss, but made it unequivocally clear that he views the rivalry as unresolved and intends to chase a second chapter down the line. Pimblett, who was transported to the hospital for evaluation after absorbing significant damage over 5 rounds, provided a health update in a new video on his channel, minimizing the physical toll while hinting at deeper competitive frustrations. "The only thing that's wrong with me is my eyeballs from fingernails scratching my eyeballs," he said, downplaying the severity. "But, we get on with it. I haven't watched it back yet. I'm still quite annoyed at myself and quite a lot of other things surrounding the fight, but we'll watch it back." Despite the fresh sting of defeat, Pimblett extended professional respect to Gaethje and even voiced support for him in the impending title unification clash against undisputed champion Ilia Topuria. Yet his central focus quickly shifted to the prospect of a do-over. "Hats off to him. I hope he wins the undisputed title off Ilia, and hopefully we can run it back, even though I don't think he has too many fights left," Pimblett stated, acknowledging Gaethje's potential career timeline while planting his own flag for a sequel. The call for a rematch is driven by specific lingering grievances from their first encounter, details he has yet to fully unpack publicly. "Hopefully we can run it back in future, because there's a couple of things in that fight that have pissed me off. I just hope that in the future he can step up and have a rematch with me." This ambitious long-term target reveals a fighter who is processing his first UFC defeat not as a definitive endpoint, but as a pivotal learning experience in a story he believes is incomplete. Before any such rematch can materialize, Pimblett must first navigate a necessary rebuild in the shark tank of the lightweight division, with a logical next step being a bout against a seasoned contender like Dan Hooker. However, his public desire for another shot at Gaethje establishes a bold North Star for his comeback, a declaration that the war they waged at UFC 324 was merely the first act in Pimblett's mind, not the conclusion.
Khamzat Chimaev hasn't even reached the 6-month mark of his UFC middleweight championship reign, yet he is already fixated on capturing a second belt, relentlessly calling for a super fight with light heavyweight king Alex Pereira. The undefeated champion secured the 185-pound title with a dominant, if at times plodding, unanimous decision victory over Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319 last August. Rather than turning his attention to the queue of contenders in his own division, Boers is loudly pursuing a legacy-defining jump to 205 pounds, a move that former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman believes is driven by a pressing physical reality. According to Usman, who battled Chimaev to a narrow and memorable decision in 2023, the Chechen-born star may already be straining against the limits of the middleweight division. Speaking on his Pound for Pound podcast with Henry Cejudo, Usman revealed that industry whispers suggest Khamzat's massive frame is making the cut to 185 pounds increasingly difficult, if not unsustainable. For my man Khamzat Chimaev to continue to call Pereira out, I think Khamzat potentially has outgrown the weight class again. Now he's like, you know what, let me go capture that and go to a new division where I can make the way and I can capture that. Because there's all types of rumors and things coming out saying he's 230 pounds, 225 whatever. Khamzat is a big guy. Khamzat's always been a big guy. To illustrate his point, Usman drew a poignant comparison to the late Anthony "Rumble" Johnson, a fighter whose career trajectory was defined by a battle with the scale. Anthony famously endured brutal cuts to welterweight early in his UFC tenure before eventually flourishing as a terrifying force at light heavyweight. The fact that Khamzat was making 170 pounds is just as ridiculous as Anthony Johnson when he was making 170 pounds, Usman stated, paying tribute to his deceased friend. But Anthony Johnson moved up, fought at 185 pounds, I think maybe one time, and I think even missed weight there at 185 pounds after moving up, then settled at 205 pounds. So I think Khamzat might potentially be in that same ballpark, which is potentially why he's asking for Poatan. Usman's analysis reframes Khamzat's very public campaign. It suggests the pursuit of Pereira is not merely an audacious power grab, but a strategic and perhaps necessary pivot for a champion whose body is rebelling against the grueling process of making middleweight. If you've outgrown the weight class, it makes sense. Why would I kill myself to get down there when I just can't make that weight anymore? He reasoned. If Usman's assessment is accurate, it adds a compelling and practical dimension to the brewing champion versus champion showdown. Khamzat's callouts may be less about dodging contenders like Brendan Allen or Nasiruddin Imavov, and more about answering an immutable physical demand to move up. This would set the stage for a historic super fight that also serves as a logical solution for an athlete who has simply become too large for the division he rules. The UFC has officially confirmed a stacked lineup for its return to London's O2 Arena on March 21, 2026, with a card that blends high-stakes title implications, local star power, and promising prospects. The promotion announced the full fight card on Monday, headlined by an undefeated featherweight showdown that will likely determine the next challenger for champion Alexander Volkanovski. The event promises to be one of the organization's most significant international offerings of the year, building on the massive success of the promotion's record-breaking visit to the same venue in March 2025. The main event pits the technically flawless Movsar Evloev against the explosive Lerone Murphy in a classic clash of styles with everything on the line.
Evloev, who carries a perfect 19-0 professional record and a 9-0 mark in the UFC, has faced criticism for his decision-heavy approach, having never secured a finish inside the octagon. His last outing was a narrow decision over former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling in December 2024. Standing across from him will be Murphy, who brings his own undefeated record of 17-0-1 and the momentum of one of 2025's most spectacular knockouts, a first-round spinning elbow that flattened Aaron Pico at UFC 319. The winner is expected to be next in line for a shot at Volkanovski, who successfully defended his title against Diego Lopes just last weekend at UFC 325. The co-main event spotlights another rising British talent in Luke Riley, a longtime training partner of Paddy Pimblett, who announced himself with a second-round knockout and a performance of the night bonus in his UFC debut at UFC Qatar. He faces a tough test in Michael Aswell as he looks to establish himself in the crowded featherweight division. Further down the main card, an all-British welterweight clash between the always entertaining Michael Venom Page and the surging Sam Patterson promises fireworks. Page is coming off a win over Jared Cannonier, while Patterson has earned his opportunity with a 4-fight first-round finishing streak and aims to break into the welterweight top 15. The card also features a key middleweight bout between ranked contender Roman Dolidze and the in-form Christian Leroy Duncan, as well as a light heavyweight contest that marks the divisional debut of former heavyweight Austin Lane against undefeated Polish prospect Iwo Baraniewski. The preliminary card is equally robust, loaded with regional talent and compelling matchups. Welsh lightweight Mason Jones takes on Axel Sola, British fan favorite Nathaniel Wood meets Losine Keita at featherweight, and ranked heavyweight Mick Parkin faces Portugal's Mario Pinto. The card also includes the highly anticipated UFC debut of Dana White's Contender Series signee Curtis Campbell, who puts his undefeated record on the line against Danny Silva. Additional bouts feature Shem Rock, Melissa Mullins, Chanel Dyer, and several other fighters looking to make their mark in front of the passionate London crowd. Tickets for the event, the UFC's 17th visit to London, will go on general sale on February 6th, with early access for Fight Club members starting February 4th and a priority window for pre-registered fans on February 5th. With a perfect blend of a title eliminator at the top, beloved local attractions, and a deep undercard of rising talent, this London card is poised to deliver a memorable night of fights and continue the UFC's successful run in the UK market. Norma Dumont is in a state of growing frustration as the UFC women's bantamweight division grinds to a halt. The number 3 ranked contender was banking on the massive super fight between champion Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes at UFC 324 to finally create movement at the top of the division, but Harrison's neck injury and subsequent surgery have thrown everything into disarray, leaving Dumont and her peers in a state of limbo. The division does seem a little bit stuck, Dumont told MMA Junkie through an interpreter. Who knows what's going to happen and how this division's going to move forward at this point? It's really frustrating. I thought that once Kayla and Amanda fought, finally, it would make the division move forward. For me, it's a tough situation because Juliana is hurt, Raquel is hurt, I have nobody above me to help me move up that staircase, and we're all stuck. The division is not moving. With the champion injured and the former title holders above her, Pena and Pennington, also sidelined, Dumont finds herself in a purgatory where logical next steps are scarce. Her ideal scenario is a fight with Juliana Pena, the last title holder before Harrison, believing that matchup makes the most sense for the division. However, with timelines unclear, she is resigned to staying active and accepting whatever fight the UFC offers to avoid being frozen out by circumstances beyond her control. I'm going to keep on doing my work. I'm willing to accept another fight if the UFC presents it. I can't be stuck just because Kayla and Amanda are in that situation. I had nothing to do with that, so I'm going to keep on working. One fresh name that has emerged is Eileen Perez, who faces Macy Chiasson later this month. Perez has publicly called out Dumont, but Dumont claims when a contract was previously offered, Perez did not accept. Yeah, she challenges. When the contract comes, she doesn't accept it, Dumont stated, expressing skepticism about the matchup materializing. My focus is not on her, it's on the title, but I'm sure I'll have the chance to beat her up for 15 minutes and have fun. For now, Dumont's strategy is simple: control what she can. She remains dedicated to her daily training, confident that her opportunity will come. I get up every morning and I work. I go and train, I do what I have to do. It can take time, things can happen, but I guarantee you I will have my opportunity. I'm going to get my opportunity and I will become champion. Until the division's logjam clears, Norma Dumont is a contender in waiting, prepared to step in whenever the UFC calls, but increasingly vocal about the stalled state of the weight class she aims to rule.
UFC welterweight contender Shavkat Rakhmonov has delivered a sobering update to the MMA world, revealing a major setback that will further delay his highly anticipated return to the octagon. The undefeated Kazakh phenom, who has been sidelined for over a year since his dominant victory over Ian Machado Gary, has undergone another surgical procedure to address persistent injuries, pushing his comeback timeline back once more. In a candid and reflective statement posted on social media, Rakhmonov opened up about the physical and mental challenges of his prolonged recovery. A fighter's path has never been easy. Life doesn't give us challenges we can't overcome. Every dream comes at a price, and sometimes that price is your health, he wrote, acknowledging the harsh realities of life at the sport's highest level. The admission came after concerning footage surfaced showing Rakhmonov's leg in a heavily bandaged and bruised state, prompting questions about his condition. He addressed the speculation directly. "Today, I have to be honest. Due to ongoing injuries, I've had another surgery and will need time to fully recover. As a result, my return to the octagon will be postponed." This news is a significant blow to both the fighter and the welterweight division. Rakhmonov, with a perfect 18-0 record and a 100% finish rate, had been on an unstoppable rise, widely viewed as the heir apparent to the 170-pound throne. He was firmly in the title conversation before a series of injuries began to halt his momentum, first costing him a planned title eliminator and now extending his absence indefinitely. Despite the profound disappointment, Rakhmonov's statement was marked by resilience and long-term perspective. "It's not easy to accept, but I truly believe every setback is part of a bigger plan. I will come back stronger, smarter, and hungrier than ever," he affirmed. He concluded by reiterating the goal that has defined his career, a mission that now must wait. "My goal is still alive. The UFC belt still has to come to Kazakhstan. Thank you to everyone who stands by me no matter what. This is not the end of the journey, it's an important chapter of it." For now, the welterweight division, currently navigating a new championship era, must continue its evolution without one of its most feared and talented contenders. Shavkat Rakhmonov's path now leads away from the cage and back into the grueling, solitary process of rehabilitation, with his undefeated record and championship dreams placed on hold until his body allows him to resume his quest.